last of which we think might be the best. Cowboys 9.
I think I'm live. We're checking out the video right now. I think I'm live. Yeah, that's perfect actually. Huh? We can get feedback if I don't sit down. Perfection. All right. If I don't sit down. Perfection. All right. So I had to fucking spend. Hold on. I fucking had to spend the last hour fixing this damn treadmill because the tread itself was pulling to the left. I talked to Peloton and they basically said, go fuck yourself, pay us money. I told them to go fuck themselves. So I fixed it. And if anybody want to know how to hack this motherfucker right here, this screen, so you can do YouTube, Netflix, everything that I got on here, you let me know. I'll tell you how to do that shit for free, because fuck Peloton. Fuck you.
The Niners game of the football game, the defensive football game, the last of which we think might be the Niners game of the weekend.
Still not 100%. There's something wrong with it, but it works fine now.
1995 season, 11 straight playoff appearances without reaching that round. That's the longest streak of all time. Speaking of 11 straight, that's how many games Francisco has won in a row.
It's not the longest of all time.
It was great last week, accounting for 4 playoff debut. Since we these are the only teams in the league to score 30 points per game. The Walters sets up an epic rematch from last year's postseason. And Dak Prescott, for one, wants it.
Most definitely I did. I think this whole team did. Obviously, using that loss last year as a motivation and just kind of the focal point, I guess, of the resiliency that we carried into the offseason.
Not going to go hard today because I just want to make sure this treadmill's good.
We do something that we want to do.
I've taken it all apart, fixed it.
I mean, be careful what you wish for. If you want the champ, you're going to get the champ. I know the Niners aren't the champs, but they did finish the regular season with the #1 scoring defense in the National Football League. And you see, the Eagles have gone up against teams like that quite a bit in their history, but not so much lately. That one last year is really, or this one, that's this game I'm looking at up there on the street. So it hasn't happened in what Fred scored in 40 years. All right, RC, let's start with the quarterback as it starts with the quarterback. Dak Prescott, so much conversation about what's been something of an up and down year for him. Coming off of the great performance Monday night, what is the #1 key for Dak Sunday for the Cowboys to win?
First off, Greeny, Dak is lying, right? Let me explain something to y'all. Dak Prescott always says the right thing. And he absolutely said what he was supposed to about playing the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco. But in one of his truer moments, he would have said, I much wish this was the Seattle Seahawks or someone else other than the San Francisco 49ers because they're playing absolutely lights out right now. And if you're going to play against this DeMeco Ryans led defense, Dak Prescott has to protect the football. That is the #1 thing that has to happen this week if the Cowboys are even to have a chance of competing in this game.
When
you watch Dak play on Monday night, that was the best of Dak Prescott. That was composure, that was poise, that was his ability to use his legs and decisiveness from the pocket. Kellen Moore needs to get the exact same thing from him. If there is any difference, if we see Washington Commander Dak Prescott, if we see second half Jacksonville Jaguars Dak Prescott, this can be a blowout, much like we saw in the second half of San Francisco and Seattle in the first round of the playoffs. This defense is attack, attack. If there is blood in the waters, all sharks know to do is eat, and this is a defense full of sharks. Dak can't give them anything that makes them want to bite off a limb.
He accounted for the 5 touchdowns on Monday night. I know, Tim, you have some tape, because this is a step up in class.
Yeah, step up in class. It's going to be hard to run the football. He needs to pass the football well. And I thought Kellen Moore did an excellent job a week ago. Here's an example. You're going to face block cover 3 against the Niners. What Dallas is trying to do here, from a condensed formation, is get a horizontal stretch on the free safety. Basically, with the seam, really kind of a post because of where he's aligned. But the shallow cross holds the underneath coverage to the opposite side. And why that's important is this 3D, guys need to carry up the seam. If they don't, you get that horizontal stretch on the safety. Guys is able to move to his left, takes his tight end who's wide open, the corner's not able to midline it. because of the outside route. So because of that, like that type of stuff, I think that really is a lot more about Kellen Moore designing good plays, calling them at the right time to help Dak see it. And that's important against a really good defense.
And particularly against the zone defense. What's the most important piece of this for Dak?
It's timing and windows, and every time you're playing a zone, everything is about your timing with your receivers, and then when they're in those open windows, and you're going to be going against a defense that has a good pass rush. So I think Dak is going to have to use his legs, and I'm not talking about running outside of the pocket and trying to run and scramble for first downs. I'm talking buying some time, making sure that those guys get into those open windows and staying on pace, staying on time. And if you're the 49ers, that's exactly what you're trying to disrupt. Your pass rushers are trying to get to Dak before those receivers are developed into their timing routes and get to Dak. So it's going to be vital that Dak uses his legs, buys some time, avoids the rush, and takes what the defense gives him.
Yeah, and so what you're talking about is extending plays. There is also the reality that he ran with the football more times on Monday night than he did any other game this season, and I, for one, think that could be a major factor in this game. And Diana, I know you're just watching the offensive line.
I'm glued on Nick Bosa, right? Because you know that the Dallas Cowboys have to have a plan for May. They have enough respect for what he can do. And he can change the game. He can make that slide absolutely miserable. And look, the Cowboys offensive line has done a really good job this year protecting Dak. But this could be a completely different situation if they don't have a really good plan in containing Bosa.
Yeah, if we wake up Monday morning, Ryan Clark will be here with me, and we are talking about Nick Bosa being the best player on the field, the Cowboys have no chance whatsoever to win that game. Now, before I get to that, RC, I have been waiting all week for this moment, based on some of the reaction I have gotten to this question on this show, and that is this. The Dallas Cowboys are playing this game at a fairly significant disadvantage in rest. The 49ers played Saturday early, and now they're playing Sunday late. You can't have more rest than they're having. The Cowboys, meanwhile, we know it. Back-to-back road games, one's on a Monday, so they are at a disadvantage. Historically, you see the numbers. Playoff teams in that circumstance only have won 9 out of 33 games. Ryan Clark, how much of a factor is that in this football game Sunday?
I mean, it's a large factor, and honestly, you got to blame Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. If we had a worse team calling the Monday night game, we wouldn't have had the good football game, and so that's the problem. Also, on the other side of it, when you look at this, you have to use that as motivation. You have to use that as a focusing tool if you're Mike McCarthy. And you talk about the fact that you have short rest and how it can be to your advantage because you just played, and now you can carry over some of that momentum. You talk about the way that you're going to reset, you're going to restore. But the way that allows you to be fresher on Sunday than a team that has had this time and maybe practice a little more or practice harder. You're going to use all the ways that this can make you a better team, and then you're going to take away every single excuse. But when you look at not being able to have as much rest as the San Francisco 49ers, the San Francisco 49ers getting an opportunity to heal and also get some recovery, that is going to be a huge part of this game. But when the ball is kicked off, it's about executing the game plan, being physical, running, and hitting. That's the only way to beat the San Francisco 49ers. It don't matter if you had 3 months or 3 days. If you don't bring your hard hat and your lunch bill, you're going to get ran out of the stadium.
Look, I brought this up this weekend. He's a very large man, and I was genuinely afraid. He got so angry at me for even raising the idea that this is an actor.
He's large.
Yeah. No, just me.
Why do you think he's large?
Well, I mean, he was an offensive tackle, so he's a very big man. And he got in my face. I was like, greeting. Do you know what round this is? This is the playoffs. I'm chasing a chip. I don't want to talk to my family. I don't want to see this, that, or the other. This is about playing this game. There's no excuses. There's no difference. He didn't want to hear it.
I don't want to hear it either. This is the playoffs. Suck it up. Go play football. And at the end of the day, too, they just came off a win against the Bucs that threw the ball 60 times and ran the ball 15. So in those particular matchups, where you're not having to stop the run, you're not taking direct shots from the fullbacks or the linemen just coming up, you're not really that banged up. You just ran 7-on-7 for about 75 snaps. So it's not that bad. They can add to it, it's fine.
There's travel. I mean, all these things. Tim, I'm trying to put all this into the hopper. There's travel. They were in Tampa, then they're home. Now they're going to San Francisco. Niners are sitting in their house. They played the first game last weekend. All these things feel like a factor to them.
Yeah, so I think what Damien's talking about, what Rob's talking about is like, hey, listen, it's adrenaline. Like how are you going to respond? I'm not worried about physically for Dallas. I'm more would be concerned about Listen, you just gave this Niners offense, 2 extra days to find an extra gap or an extra hat in the run game that we've got to adjust to. Like, that's where I think the league gives the Cowboys a service, is that, one team's got 2 extra days. Make no mistake about it, even when the Niners don't know who they're going to play, they are preparing for either opponent. So they're starting their game plan not knowing who the opponent is, and they're getting to work on it, whereas Dallas, they're getting ready to play a game.
Right. For what it's worth, the Cowboys, and for that matter, the Bucs, both went into Monday's game knowing that the winner was coming to San Francisco. So their advanced scouting and all that, that wasn't
but it's not by, they're not the advanced scouting. What I'm saying is putting the plan together.
I understand. I mean, the reality is this is the schedule, and they couldn't do it any better than
Yeah,
they did.
they could have. And coaches will always tell you, any extra minute they can get, any advantage is going to work into their favor. They can get something.
So let's put the picks up on the screen again. Diana's covering everything this weekend, so she's not picking games. The Cowboys, because I'm just trying to speak it into existence. Ryan Clark, why do you think Dallas wins this game on Sunday?
In some of the biggest games the Dallas Cowboys have had this year, you go to Tampa Bay on Monday night, think back to the Minnesota Vikings. Their plan defensively from Dan Quinn has been absolutely phenomenal, and we've been waiting for Brock Purdy to get to a situation or get into a football game where he looks like a rookie quarterback that was drafted with the last overall pick in the draft. And I think this is the week. I think that they'll confuse him. I think that they'll use the 4 safety package, or what we call big nickel. They'll move Trayvon Diggs around into the slot, drop him into the half, show some cover 4, move into 1. I believe this is a game that they're going to make Brock Purdy understand or try to diagnose what defense is being played in his drop, and by that, confusing him some. And we know that this team is about creating turnovers and pressure, and I believe that they get that done this week. Dak Prescott protects the football. Tony Pollard makes plays, CeeDee Lamb makes plays, Dalton Schultz make plays, and they find a way to eke a win out in San Francisco.
And the first thing he said, Nick, reminded me of something that I think I haven't done a good enough job of bringing up this week, and ask you how big a factor this is. Kyle Shanahan, offensive genius, head coach of San Francisco, was the offensive coordinator for Dan Quinn on that Super Bowl that you played against Atlanta. So Quinn, who's now the defensive coordinator of Dallas, he knows that offense about as intimately as you can. Does that matter?
Yeah, of course, and Kyle Shanahan does a great job of game planning against the aggressiveness of what that Cowboys defense is. And if you have a front that wants to pin their ears back, okay, guess what? We have McCaffrey. We're going to run a screen here, and we're going to make sure that that aggressive front that you have when you're coming after us, we use that to our advantage, and we just throw it over the top, and we use McCaffrey in these situations. So Shanahan is going to run through his script. He's going to have his top 15 plays that he's going to have go-to moments in this game. You say, okay, I know what they're going to run defensively. This is what we're going to go offensively.
I cannot wait. That's all I know.
TGIF, happy Friday, everybody.
Hold on, somebody typing? I hear you. Hold on, no, this is the, I hear you. This is the Peloton. It's trash. Don't fucking buy it. Fucking trash. I'll leave this open over here so I can check on it on occasion.
Dynamite first year with Joe Buck on ESPN and Monday Night Football. Is Pro Football Hall of Famer Cowboy. Great. Troy Aikman, how you doing, Troy?
Oh, great. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for doing that. Listen, again, I follow you on Instagram. I saw the photograph that you posted today. God bless you for saying, okay, I'll still call the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're a good man. So let's just jump right into it here. I say Cowboys 49ers. You remember what? What do you remember?
Well, the word that comes to mind is championships. Whether it was us or them, I think it was just championship football, really. It was a great period. It was a great period for the Cowboys and for the 49ers, I know that the matchups that we had in those championship games, we won 2 and they
I
won
gotta get my
1.
knees
but
back in it.
there was always a lot at stake. Whenever we played in the regular season, the difference between then and now is when we would play each other in the regular season, we knew that whoever won that game would be then hosting the NFC Championship game against the other team, and that's the way that it worked. And so it was a lot of fun. I love the matchup with Steve. I know you had him on the show, and this week will be another great matchup between these two storied franchises.
He said the 92 game age still makes him want to throw up in his mouth.
Patron. Perfection starts with Patron.
If you just look out on this field, this represents big-time football. It just looks like a big game. Throw that left, Caleb!
Fuck.
On the show,
Welcome to the hottest show in all sports television. It's the only television segment that Sean Evans distills and then bottles as the second to last hot sauce on Hot Ones. Because it's that hot, it's upset. Schler?
Yes.
The segment is very simple.
Okay.
I pretend I'm a groundhog, and we choose upsets.
Okay.
Start us off. Go ahead.
You want me to start you off with the upset? So you can imagine my dismay last night. Because I've been doing the morning show.
Yeah.
So I was nestled into my bed, and all of a sudden I heard my phone. So I checked it, and of course, production. The production team.
I just keep doing that.
Team here at first instance, and they said we need a headline from it. So I got out of bed, all right? I flipped on my light. I started to, much like the committee does, burn the midnight oil, right? And I was sitting there thinking, headline, what's the potential upset? And then bam, it dawned on me. I think it was an epiphany. I think it was almost like from heaven above. Like the epiphany hit me, and I said to myself, fee, fi, fo, done!
Giants.
Yes, I said it. The Giants are so good. They're playing such great football right now. The Giants actually beat. Yes. Oh my God. They actually beat.
Done. The Giants are going to win.
Well, the Philadelphia Eagles can be done. Yes. It's a play on Giants. It's a play.
Okay, well, headline notwithstanding, you've been flirting with this kickball week.
Yeah. I love it.
How do the Giants win? What do they have to do?
Well, listen, the Giants, number one, what they have to do is they have to be able to continue to run Daniel Jones, to make him a dual threat. The thing about them right now is Barkley attracts so much attention that we think about Barkley, how many carries did he get, how many times did he catch the ball in the backfield. But it's even the decoy nature of Barkley. He attracts so much attention. So when you run the quarterback run, if you fake it to Barkley, guess what ends up happening? The whole backside of the defense does not constrict. They're so concerned, or if you swing pass them out, it keeps the defensive end, the outside linebacker, the safety on that side, they all hang just in case Barkley gets it. So now the quarterback cutback lanes, the quarterback runs are wide open. Not only that, when you insert Barkley into the passing game underneath, he draws so much attention that it opens up the intermediate routes, the basics, the digs, all the things that Daniel Jones outside the pocket.
You think Jones runs as much this week as he did last week?
Has to. Their offense can't operate if Jones doesn't get 10 carries. He's got to have that.
I'm going to add one other part of this. This Giants season started off with an incredibly gutsy call by Brian Dable in his first game ever as a head coach. A 2-point conversion to Saquon Barkley. We have seen throughout NFL history sometimes big underdogs in the playoffs, particularly with unproven coaches, coach in what I would call a cowardly fashion. Meaning, I'm not going to give myself the best chance to win. I'm going to make sure we don't get blown out. I don't think that's Dable's DNA. I think you're gonna see, like, flea flicker, fourth down attempts, potentially surprise onside kick. I think you're going to see, no pun intended, one of the David Goliath games where the team that is the massive underdog opens up the chance that we're gonna get rolled here, but I'm gonna add some variance to the game. That would make me a little nervous, I would feel.
Wow.
And the game laterals, perhaps? Okay, don't do it. Bro?
Stink, I love the headline. The only problem is yours won't be right. Like mine was right last year, 3-5-4, or last week.
You had that headline?
3-5-4 done. Yes. But look, I got news for you. There aren't going to be any upsets. All right, there are not going to be any upsets. So I'm going to go back to the literal definition of the term upset alert.
Oh, it's an alert.
It's an alert, all right? There will be a scare. One of the teams, the favorites, gets a scare, though they win. And Nick, I showed you earlier, all the stats that made you shiver. I saw you shiver. I saw the sweat dripping from your forehead when I was talking about the sacks and all that stuff with Jacksonville. They've been getting after the quarterback lately, all right? And Patrick Mahomes, you always like to talk about, oh, Josh Allen throwing it all over the yard. Yes. Patrick Mahomes has more interceptions in his last 4 playoff games than Josh Allen has in his career postseason. So here's the headline. Prince, you like that, almost sounds the alarm. sounds the trumpet. The Prince almost sounds the trumpet. And then parentheses and the snare drum. Okay, almost. I think this is going to be a better game than we think. I've been watching Kansas City. And I love Mahomes, but Denver, led by Russell Wilson, the starting of the reserve, gave them some problems.
You say Denver's good?
Houston! Denver's not good. Next year, possible. Houston gave them some problems. Well, Jacksonville destroyed Houston. They gave Kansas City some issues. That's true. So I'm just saying, it's a little closer than we think. There's a little more adrenaline flowing and trepidation. You might have to go out and walk your dog and, do what else you can get you some rest during the game. When I'm with you get out of the house, you get some fresh air. You might have to do that, Nick. And it's going to be a one-score game. Kansas City wins in a one-score game.
Never invite Chris Broussard to your home. I invited him to my home right after he joined the show. I had a stressful moment. I leave the house, I spoke with like a mile.
He left me alone in his house for 35 minutes. Sitting there on the couch, looking at the TV by myself. He's gone.
That's true.
And then comes back in like nothing happened.
Can I just make one point here? Chris Broussard somehow referenced a Chiefs game earlier in the year against an AFC South team that wasn't the Chiefs game earlier this year against the Jaguars when they rolled. So this is not going to be a close game. That is a terrible upset alert.
I like it. Oh, it's now time for the anchor leg of upset alert. Schlereth, it's your first time on upset alert.
Yes.
You know why they call me the Punxsutawney Phil of football? Is it because I'm covered with fur and living a log? No.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I can predict the future.
I am predicting Cowboys over 49ers. And I know everyone's like, oh my goodness, wow. What, you had too much Timothy grass this morning? No. I looked at the stone cold facts of the Cowboys offense versus the 49ers offense. I showed it to you earlier in the show.
Yeah.
Oh, Nick's out here saying the 49ers are one of the best teams in the history of football.
I said they were.
I nearly gagged on some alfalfa. But when you look at the real facts of it, Cowboys lead in all these categories. And they say, oh, well, wow, what about the defense? The San Francisco 49ers have great defense. They do? Oh, well, was I just eating magical buttercups when Jarrett Stidham lit them up? First 14 games, they were great. Last 2 games, not so good. So I'm just saying, while everyone is picking the 49ers, the Punxsutawney Phil of football is sticking with the Dallas Cowboys.
Right now, this moment, would the Cowboys be your pick to go to the Super Bowl? I'm not trying to push on the spot like that, and you don't have to be tied to it, but I feel like...
Strong maybe. A strong maybe. And he would. Dak's interceptions have clouded everyone's brain. that he was throwing it to the wrong team, the Jags' loss was really bad, and everyone just decided to write off the Cowboys. How do you write that?
They definitely have a better chance than the Cardinals. You're
Who's that? You said Jameis Winston.
That was years ago.
Sucker Nick Smith, trying to win some money.
You know what, I'll just hand these out.
Wow.
Everybody, let's talk about it. Here we go, we just threw money around the table, we don't like this. Because it grows on trees, you follow Nick Smith. What is that on the year? Is that 30, 21, and 2? That's 59% against the spread. We love that in the playoffs with a 4-2 weekend. Yeah, the Bucs pick one, the Vikings broke my heart. The other ones, never a doubt. Most notably the Jacksonville Jaguars. Truly, never a doubt. This week we'll pick all 4 games once again. We'll pick them in order. Kansas City, lay the 8.5 against the Prince that was promised. Mahomes blows teams out in his opening playoff game. He's won those opening playoff games by 18, 21, and 21 if you take out the game he was injured midway through. The Chiefs, under our Andy Reid party, is 27-4 off a bye. Mahomes off a bye, even better, 9-1 in his career. They scored 35 plus points. Mahomes is spectacular. The Chiefs minus 8.5. They're covering by halftime. Next, to me, the toughest game on the board. You have 2 teams that I haven't believed in all year. So in that situation, it's a divisional game. I'm getting more than a touchdown. The quarterback's banged up for the Eagles. The Giants, plus 7.5. Backdoor cover opportunities. If Jalen is not 100% or if Lane Johnson has to leave the game and they go conservative, it's just too many. What did we see in the divisional rematches in the first round? Miami kept it closer than people thought. Baltimore kept it closer than people thought. The Giants, plus 7.5 against the Eagles. Now, to Sunday. Cincinnati, plus 5.5. How about Cincinnati outright winner? Wow! Burrow, as an underdog, third of 3 or more points. 13-2 against the spread. Burrow, his last 7 games as an underdog of any amount. 7-0 against the spread. 5-2 straight up. This team went into Arrowhead and won. They, of course, can go into Orchard Park. What type of name is that for a stadium anyway? And win there. And then finally, San Francisco, minus 3.5. This game should be San Francisco minus 6.5. But the public loves the Cowboys, and the Cowboys looked sensational on Monday night. I bet it at San Francisco minus 6.5. I'm going to jump all over to San Francisco minus 3.5. They're the best team in the NFC. There's a bad luck draw for the Cowboys. They're going to give the Eagles a real fight. So there it is. Chiefs minus 8.5. Giants plus 7.5. Bengals plus 5.5. And the Niners minus 3.5. Let's go 4-0 this weekend, guys. Excellent job. 3 out of 4 there.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from others.
I can't wait.
On Sunday, a very significant game will be played. It could burst the Nielsen pipeline with viewers. You had 31 million plus in the final analysis on Monday night between the Bucs and the Cowboys. Cowboys 49ers, are you kidding me? At 6 o'clock on Fox, nationally televised. I don't know what the number is going to be, Peter, but it's going to be more than 31 million. It's going to be more than the Thanksgiving game between the Giants and the Cowboys. It's going to be 45 to 50 million tuning in for this Cowboys 49ers game. And I can't wait to see it because it's got that 90s vibe. It's got that old school, the teams that were inevitably going to square off to get to the Super Bowl. Every year from 92 through 95, they get together again, and there's something special about that.
Well, Mike, I covered the game 30 years ago this week. For Sports Illustrated, Cowboys at Niners. And that week, it was a very weird week. It was Candlestick Park. It poured rain the whole week. And the field was basically not in great shape. But the NFL brought in George Toma that week to work on the field. And it actually held up okay. But anyway, that was 30 miles north at Candlestick Park in San Francisco. This one will be in Santa Clara, and I guarantee you, even with all the rain, the field will be in a lot better shape than that field was 30 years ago. And I just think honestly, I think a better field and a more, and the reason that I think it's an advantage for the Cowboys, look, it may neutralize Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa, because if you're an edge rusher, you have to have sure footing coming around the corner, and who knows what the footing will be like. But to me, the biggest person in this game who I would want to have a sure-footed field on it is Tony Pollard.
Yep.
You know, the Cowboys running back makes people miss. He is in the open field. He's very hard to corral. And in short area space, he's one of the best short area quickness guys in the NFL right now. So to me, I think if it's a mucky field and it doesn't look like it's going to be, that would hurt Tony Pollard. The better the field is, the better it's going to be, I think, for the Dallas Cowboys.
And by the way, I did misspeak, and I want to correct myself. It was 92, 93, and 94 that the Cowboys and the 49ers met for the right to go to the Super Bowl. 95, Brett Favre and the Packers went into what was known at the time as 3-Column Park and beat the 49ers 27-17 before going to Dallas and losing to the Cowboys that year. So 3 straight years in the NFC Championship, they get together again. The Cowboys get their first road win since that game you're talking about in the postseason. If the Cowboys win, they will advance to the NFC Championship for the first time since that 38-27 victory over Brett Favre in 1995. Who would have ever imagined, Peter? I think I say this every year, especially when the Cowboys are in the postseason or when their season ends. It's another year removed from 1995. And now we are 26 years from the last time the Cowboys played for the right to go to the Super Bowl. That would have been incomprehensible if you had told us that the last time the Cowboys made it to the Super Bowl 30. To not get to the NFC Championship since then is truly amazing, and now's their chance.
Hey, look, you know, the one thing about this Cowboys team, in my opinion, the other day in Tampa, they didn't really have an explosive running game. But remember, this is a known Parcells-ism. You know, when I once asked him about, what some team or another, 4.7 yards a carry, they had a really good day running the ball. And he said, Peter, it isn't yards per carry. It is number of carries. And the reason that he said that in this particular game, like it all draw the conclusion to this game. So the Cowboys only rushed for 3.7 yards a carry, but they rushed it 35 times. And they had the ball for 35 minutes in this game. 34 actually, but almost 35 minutes. And what you want to do in this game is keep the ball away from Tom Brady. Even though Tom Brady didn't look like Tom Brady in that game, you want to keep the ball away from Tom Brady. That has to be part of what you do. And the two things about this game that impressed me is that the Cowboys were able to run the ball efficiently, not explosively, but efficiently. And Dalton Schultz became, to me, what Jay Novacek was to Troy Aikman in big games, what Jason Witten was to Tony Romo in big games. And that is a security blanket tight end against a defense that knew he was coming, but still, Dalton Schultz had the kind of night, you know, with 7 catches and 2 touchdowns, that is going to be essential against a team that can be defensively oppressive like the 49ers can be.
One of the big talking points this week relates to the dynamic the NFL first adopted last year with a Monday night game to cap Super Wild Card round with 6 windows, 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, 1 on Monday night. The end result here, the Cowboys travel to Tampa, play Monday night, travel back to Dallas, travel to Santa Clara, and play 6 days later when the 49ers have 8 days and didn't have to travel on either end. Didn't travel home, don't travel out. Here's Kyle Shanahan when asked yesterday by reporters about having 2 extra days to get ready for this game in comparison to the Cowboys.
I mean, I think it can be an advantage, sometimes it can be a disadvantage. So I know the obvious ones. that, you get less rest, less time to recover. I love having more time and stuff, but sometimes you feel like you can't play those Thursday night games and you get to it and your team is just off the wall because they haven't slowed down at all. And by this time, I don't think it is about recovery. It's about detail and it's about executing and it's about playing at a high level. Once you get to games, especially in the playoffs, that recovery, people forget about pretty quickly. And I'm just watching the Rams last year. They beat the Cardinals as good as anyone, and then they flew all the way to Tampa, and I think they were up 28-0 at halftime. So I don't think it means anything.
Now, I disagree with half of what Kyle Shanahan said. I'll agree with him when it comes to recovery. Players are going to be less inclined to complain. Their bodies are going to find a way to get themselves right again. The adrenaline flows because it is what you play for. This is why you lift all them weights, as Bill Parcells once told his players in the 1986 season. But, Peter, he also said it's detail, planning, execution. And when you give Kyle Shanahan a little extra time to get ready for the Cowboys defense, especially when, and I know I'm going to trigger you with this, especially when Dan Quinn is going to interview for a head coaching job on Friday and necessarily limit the amount of time and focus and attention he is devoting to what should be his only task this week. Work, eat, sleep, nothing else. Prepare for Kyle Shanahan, his former offensive coordinator when he was the head coach of the Falcons. Hell yes, that's an advantage for Kyle Shanahan. And Kyle Shanahan's not going to say it. He's going to downplay it. Well, he takes full advantage of that advantage.
I am without speech when it comes to the NFL allowing coaches in the playoffs to interview for head coaching jobs.
Yeah, that baffled me too.
I'm just telling you, if I were a head coach and Mike McCarthy said all of the right things, how great it is for Dan Quinn, and we know that he'll be focused on this game, blah, blah, blah. Just here's my question. You've worked all season to get to this point. Everything that you have done all through your off season was to get to the divisional round, and then everything will be to get to the championship game. Then everything will be to get to the Super Bowl. I mean, first of all, I would be okay if Dan Quinn is preparing for a head coaching job on July 12th. Okay, if he's putting his binder together and all that stuff. Okay, which I'm sure that's what coaches and their agents do. It's insane. It is worse than insane. In my opinion, the NFL allowing this basically sets up, a reason. And look, this is not the Dallas Cowboys and it's not Dan Quinn. Okay. But 2 years ago, I remember talking to a general manager of a team who had a coordinator interviewing for a job, and this team was in the playoffs. And this general manager told me that I don't know how anybody could think that if we lose this game, that some small part of the reason wasn't one of my coaches spending 4 hours both preparing for and doing an interview for a head coaching job somewhere else. It's crazy. It is absolutely, totally, unequivocally crazy. But Mike, do you mind if I focus one thing about this whole rest and non-rest and everything like that? So, I know this because yesterday I work on my column a little bit ahead of time, and I answered a question in my column that'll be out on Monday, and I answered a question because somebody said it's ridiculously unfair for the Dallas Cowboys to have to fly to Tampa, play one game, win that, and then in a short week have to go to San Francisco and play a team that has 2 more days of rest. Yes. Is it equitable? No.
They should have won.
Here's my question. Did anybody say one syllable about the Los Angeles Chargers playing a game on Sunday in the late window, week 18 of the regular season, and playing the Denver Broncos in that late window, then flying home, preparing for a game, and then finding out probably when they're flying home, whenever, that they have to now go 2,900 miles, okay, and play on Saturday against the Jacksonville Jaguars on the road. Not one person said a word about that. This is precisely the same thing. And it's World War III. It's inequitable, it's awful, it's terrible. What's the difference? There is no difference. In my opinion, look, you can't predict who's going to win these games. Would anybody say anything if it was Tampa? Maybe a little bit because of the short week. But, you know, that's just the way life goes. You have, and plus, how about this? The Dallas Cowboys had an extra day to prepare for this game, the wild card game in Tampa. They had an extra day to get their injured guys more treatment. Okay, so stop with this. Just stop.
Well, the reality is there's no solution. There are things you can point to, and it's not a matter of what's fair, what's not fair. Those are just factors. These are factors. When we're trying to figure out who's going to win the game, it makes me more confident when I think the 49ers are going to win because they had the 2 extra days to prepare, because they didn't have to travel, because they had the extra recovery time, because Dan Quinn necessarily is distracted for a chunk of when he should be focused exclusively on cracking the code on Kyle Shanahan's offense and not having Shanahan crack the code on his defense. Every extra minute that you spend thinking about anything but what you should be only doing is necessarily one less minute than you are spending on that thing. So, and bottom line, Peter, there is no solution. Unless they start all of the playoff games at the exact same time, there's no way to iron this out. And as fans, we want to watch this game, then this game, then let's sleep, then let's watch 3, one after another, then let's sleep again, and then let's watch one in prime time on Monday night. So that's what happens when these games are on big platforms with huge numbers. Look at the ratings from the weekend, and that 31 million plus from Monday night. The NFL's never given that up. So Mike McCarthy is very pragmatic. TV is king. That's just the way it works, and they just have to operate within those confines.
I want to just make one last point about this, and I don't mean to be a dillweed about this, Mike, but let me ask you this question. Would anyone have said anything if the Dallas Cowboys, instead of playing Monday night, had played Saturday night? Would anybody have said anything? Probably not. It is the exact same thing. Playing at Washington on Sunday, flying home to Dallas, having a short week, flying to Tampa, playing Saturday night. It would have been the same thing, and yet people wouldn't have been up in arms about that. The Cowboys got their rest on the front end. They don't have their rest on the back end. And road versus home, hey, if you want to do something about that, have a better record than the 49ers in the regular season.
I agree with that statement.
Oh, exactly. It's one of the benefits of landing higher on the playoff tree. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT.
All right, that's it for me today. I'm back in it.
The latest news and
That was a
analysis
light
from
one.
Pro Football Talk.
At least I get the treadmill working again. That was my main concern.
I'm going to take the 49ers in a very close ball game. I think both teams have very good offenses.